As you probably know, aerodynamics is a whole science and it can get very complicated. So there are a lot of ways that people have used to understand it more simply. Today I wanted to encourage you to play around with one analogy that I think it'll be pretty fun because you can play around with it in your kitchen next time you're doing the dishes. Take the spoon in two fingers and hang it close to a tap so that the water from the tap attaches onto the back side of the spoon, and then you can see the flow of water attach to the spoon and the direction of the flow of water change. As soon as it attaches, see how the spoon gets pulled to the side? So the water is getting directed to the left, and the spoon is being pulled to the right when the flow attaches to the spoon. It's fun to do by yourself because you can actually feel the pull of the water on the spoon. So this is an analogy for the sail and the wind. So to be super clear with the analogy, we have apparent wind coming as the flow of tap water. Then it hits the spoon, which would be a sailboat's sail. Then the flow attaches to the back of the sail, changes direction, but it becomes turbulent. It becomes mixed. So you can see the water is turbulent after it leaves the spoon, and it's going at a different direction. Then the blue arrow is what I felt the spoon being pulled. I hope you try it and you can feel the spoon being pulled, and that is an analogy for the lift force. So we've got the lift force drawn in blue, and then we have resistance from the dagger boards. I drew it off the wrong dagger board here just to keep the diagram simple. Most of the resistance would also come from the leeward dagger board, as well as the hulls in the windward dagger board and the rudders. Then the blue force and the green resistance cancel each other out, and you're left with forwards force. It's not a perfect analogy, but here's a flat sail. So it's not bending the water as much. It's not creating as much power. Now we have the opposite situation with a very curved spoon, very curved sail. In very light wind, the wind doesn't like to follow sharp curves. So medium wind, medium light wind, you're trying to curve the wind as much as possible without stalling. But in the very light wind, you get a little bit of this effect happening, where it follows some of the sail and then it detaches. So as soon as the flow detaches from the sail, you're no longer redirecting the flow, you're no longer getting as much of that lift force. But even worse, when your flow detaches from the sail, that creates drag. So that's actually slowing you down. So in the very light wind, you start flattening your sail out again, just so that it stalls or it detaches flow right at the end of the sail. And of course, we also use flat sails in heavy wind when we can't handle so much lift. So here are two pictures I took back when I was flying more. On the left, there's an airplane flying at full speed, so it has a very flat wing. It doesn't need to bend the wind much to stay up in the air because it's going so fast. Then on the right, we have a picture just as the plane was landing. And because the plane's going relatively slow, much slower than when it's cruising, it actually needs to bend the wind a lot more to hold itself up in the air. So you see the wing flaps bending here. You've probably noticed that before when you're landing. But the interesting thing here for me is that there's actually a gap in between the wing and the wing flap. And that's on purpose. That's so that wind can come in and reinvigorate the flow of air along the top of the wing. So that allows the wing to bend the wind further than it would have if there was no slot in the wing. So in sailing, our slot is the slot in between the jib and the mainsail. So if you don't have that slot working properly, you can't bend the wind far enough. That's also why boats with two sails sheet their mainsail to the center, and boats with one sail tend to sheet their sail to the back corner of the boat. So hopefully that's given you some things to think about with fluid flow and stalling. Your homework, should you choose to accept it, is to try to make as long a list as you can of different situations where your boat could stall. So this could be the slot. How do you set the jib, clew, board, and traveler in certain conditions? This could be about how exactly you make the top of your mast softer in light wind. It could be underwater stalling. So be creative and try to think of as many different specific things, sail controls and actions that can cause or prevent stalling in different situations. And then we can all compare our answers and have a pretty interesting document about stalling.